ونحن المسلمون نحن الأمان. The Muslims of the world, our voices must be heard. Our voices speak the truth. People of the world, let's stop all abuse. And we are the Muslims of the world.
Greeting Congressman Johnson, our District 4 Congressman for Georgia. We are very proud of you for your really great representation in the United States Congress. A member of our community, always appreciate it and pray for your success and for your well-being to carry on this huge mission of the people voice in US Congress. Sir, few highly concerned to member of the communities, I want to draw your attention. I want to get feedback so that we can convey the messages back to the community. Number one, the economical situation of our country is really very serious. The inflation and the cost of living, everything, the price of the gas, everything is high. What is your good office and Congress is really planning to do immediate, long-term goals toward stabilizing the shaking economy? We're about to recover from COVID. Now we are facing this huge economical insecurity.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Solution?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Imam Wazir.
I cannot hear you, Congressman.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Yes, so the economy has been up and down,
Right.
and it's up right now, but the problem is that there's high prices. Inflation has taken hold.
Right.
But our economy is creating jobs, and wages are rising, but at the same time, prices are going higher. And a lot of this has to do with the cost of energy. And the oil companies have been manipulating the cost of energy for decades. And it started with when the country was afflicted with the OPEC cabal. It was a group of oil producing nations, the biggest one being Saudi Arabia, the biggest oil producer in OPEC. And so we were at the mercy of OPEC starting in the early 70s. And meanwhile, the nation ramped up its production of oil within America and became energy dependent maybe about 10 years ago. But that did not stop oil companies here in America, who made agreements with the Saudis, by the way, to produce their oil. And they are the ones that are responsible for the price of oil at the gas pump. And so we've seen prices for food and other commodities rise because of the cost of energy. And at the same time, we've seen a lot of consolidation within industries like the meatpacking industry and the food industry here in this country that is pretty much a global situation. So we have a situation where America is not unlike other countries across the world experiencing inflation, some of which has to do with supply chain difficulties that were brought on by the pandemic and are still being ironed out. So the economy is something that you don't control by way of legislation. So Congress is not in position to legislate an end to inflation, but market factors will produce lower prices or price stability at some point. And we went through many years with very low inflation, and but since the pandemic hit, and as the country came out of the recession, we saw the effects of many policies start to produce inflation. But primarily it goes to the cost of energy and the way that the oil companies manipulate prices. They are experiencing record profits these days. And so there is things that Congress can do, such as windfall profits tax on oil companies. That's something that is being considered. And also Democrats in Congress have been working hard to create a record that will support action to address the consolidation within the food sector. Just a few meat packing companies and a few seed producing entities and a few food production processors. Consolidation within that industry, within those industries, eliminates competition, and competition is what can drive down prices. So there are things that we can do to help increase competition and cut down on further consolidation within important industries that affect prices for consumers, for everything that consumers need.
Given what you described and what is going on, do you think we are heading towards recession?
Yeah, I think that the country has already experienced 1 quarter of lessened growth or pulling back from growth, and two quarters of negative growth is what constitutes the definition of a recession. So we are probably already into a recession right now, but I don't think it's considered to be one that will be a deep recession like the one we had when COVID-19 hit and we lost millions of jobs just overnight. We won't have that kind of a recession, but it does appear that we will go into a mild, or that we are in a mild recession. But we won't know for sure until figures come back from the end of the quarter that we're in now.
The other thing is, Congressman, is the safety of every citizen in this country become an issue. You know, the police brutality is nonstop. You've seen in the news what happened in Chicago and in Ohio. In Chicago, the parade of July 4th became a bloodbath. In Ohio, a police officer, 8 of them are shooting to black man 60 times. When is the stop of this police brutality? 2, the increase of the white supremacy is also become a serious issue. Is Congress considering doing something about it?
Yes, but the problem is we get stalled by Republicans in Congress who don't want to do any reforms to policing. So the House, under Democratic control, has passed the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. We've sent it to the Senate. That act would go a long way towards reining in the excess use of force, unnecessary force by police officers nationwide. But Republicans refuse to allow the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to come to the floor for a vote because of the filibuster, which requires there to be 60 votes in order to bring a measure like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act or the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to the floor of the Senate for a majority vote. If it ever hit the floor, either one of those measures for a majority vote, it would probably pass. Both of those bills would probably pass, but it won't pass because we have two Democrats who don't want to get rid of the filibuster. We have 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans in the Senate, so it's a tie ball game. You have the vice president who would break any ties of votes, but you need 50 plus one in order to change the rules to eliminate the filibuster. And we only have 48 that are willing to do that. So we have two Democrats that not willing to abolish the filibuster, even just for the limited purpose of passing important civil rights legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So we need to elect in November more Democrats in the Senate, at least 2 additional Democrats in the Senate. And we need to maintain our majority in the House of Representatives, our Democratic majority. And if we can do that, we'll continue to pass meaningful legislation in the House of Representatives. And then we'll be able to reform the Senate rules to eliminate the ones that are standing in the way. They are the ones that are responsible for the resurgence of white supremacy and the approval of white supremacy in this country. A large, it's something that we must confront, we must acknowledge, and we must change, but we do that through exercising our right to vote. And everybody needs to get out and vote in November, and they need to vote for the Democrats.
It reminded me of the Brady Law at the time of Reagan. You remember the secretary of Reagan was shot. As a result, Congress passed a law called Brady Law. You remember then Congressman from Georgia, Gingrich, had a program in '94, in the '90s, called Contract with America. So with that contract with America, they got they were voted in, so they repealed that good law that was passed then. Are we going to the same cycle? If, say, we have now enough vote, we get it in, and then the Republican, they will get more vote, they're gonna repeal. So when's the end of this cycle?
Well, yeah, Newt Gingrich contract with America was actually a contract on America, and it did not have anything to do with reform of the gun laws. It had everything to do with economics and switching all policies to favor what's called a free market economy,
right,
where there was no government intervention to protect the weak from the strong. And it ushered in a period where the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer, and the middle class has shrunk. That's what the contract on America was all about with Newt Gingrich.
right.
But it's important that people understand that it's important who we vote for, and votes are very important. So if you would tell me your question again, you kind of got me sidetracked on Newt Gingrich, but what was your?
Basically, what I try to get is, Congressman, when the Democrat are the majorities, they pass good laws, they maintain it during the term of 2 years and 4 years in the Senate, and then the Republican come, they will be voted in, and then they're gonna repeal those good laws. Is there some sort of language and protection need to be codified in the law so that it will not be this kind of cycle circle?
Yeah, one of the important components of American law is that one Congress cannot bind another Congress. So anytime we change sessions of Congress, depending on who's in control,
right,
they have the ability to change the law. Right. And that has a good side and a bad side, but it would really be bad if let's say Republicans got into office and locked us into repressive policies that a Democratic majority could not change.
Right.
So it's a two-edged sword. We can change some things for the better. They can change it back. But if they change things for the worse, we can change it back to the better.
I see. Now, I know you work for our community and for our country a lot, and you bring in a lot of resources to our community. Some of the people may not know what resources you bring in. I'm looking to your website and the resources. Since 2007, you brought like about $70 million to the community. Could you identify some of them, and what can we expect more?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not really prepared today to talk about how much money I have secured for the citizens of the 4th District, but it is in the hundreds of millions. Piece of legislation that was the doing of President Biden when he came into office. He proposed this legislation, which Congress passed, and it put money into the hands of people. It put money in the hands of small businesses, and it put money into school systems so that we could get kids back into school safely. So money in pockets, money in the coffers of businesses, and this is what made it possible for businesses and individuals to survive the pandemic during a urgent meltdown of the economy due to the pandemic. And it was money that enabled people to make it through to the point where they could resume their employment, where their businesses could resume doing business, and where profits could be made and higher wages could be obtained. And that's where we are now. So there was a lot of money in the bill, in the Infrastructure for America Act that we passed, $1.9 trillion, $1.1 trillion, I'm sorry.
Right.
Many millions going to the 4th District for infrastructure, bridges, roads, broadband, schools, clean water, increased energy efficiency, those kinds of things. And that act produced a lot of jobs. And so there's a lot of benefits that people have seen over the last 2 years as a result of Democrats having the House, having a majority in the Senate, although it's a bare majority, and having a president that will sign the legislation that we pass. And by the way, we could pass that legislation without having to undergo the filibuster in the Senate. And that's the only way that things got passed. We used what's called reconciliation, which is a procedure that requires there to be a budgetary impact. So you can't use reconciliation on every piece of legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but you can use it where there is revenue being raised or taxes being raised. So that's how we were able to pass very important legislation that put money in people's pockets.
That's indeed will be very good news to see that happen. Finally, 2 questions. One, recently the Supreme Court passed a law regarding abortion. How drastically is going to affect Georgian and citizens across the country?
Yeah, it'll have a drastic impact on women's health and on families and on the reproductive right that women have. The Supreme Court took it away. after it had been firmly entrenched in the law for half a century. And so first time in American history that a right has been taken away. And it is an important indicator of where this US Supreme Court is headed. And so, and that's not a direction that that we as a people need to be headed in, because it means that our rights to vote and our rights to participate in this in the economy are now threatened. If first you take away women's rights, then you take away the rights of other minorities, like start taking away the right to vote, which the Supreme Court has already done with the cases of Shelby versus Holder, and another case which I don't recall, which has diminished the ability of Section 2 to protect the rights of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, to protect the rights of Black people to vote in this country. And so we're heading in the wrong direction, and it means we need to elect Democrats so that we can do some reform to our court system. One of the most important things we can do there is to expand the size of the Supreme Court, to unpack it, because it's been packed by Republican ultra conservatives over the last 50 years, and the net result is a 6-3 unbalanced, extreme right-wing court that's taken us in the wrong direction.
In the international front, the Russian and Ukraine fight is going to 6 months, going 5 to 6 months. And it causes a lot of economical problem worldwide, including here at home. What does the end game look like to you?
Well, the end game is the defeat of Vladimir Putin's attempt to take over the country of Ukraine. If we allowed him to do that, as we allowed him to take part of Ukraine back in 2015 when he took Crimea, that encouraged him to go ahead and take all of Crimea, all of Ukraine. And so, we have to stop Putin. This is something that is important to world security. You can't allow a international bully to take what he wants and think that if you let him have it, he will stop. If you don't stop him, he will continue to take, and before you know it, he would be right on the shores of America trying to invade this country. And so it's a matter of national defense and world security that Putin is stopped from taking over Ukraine. And so no matter what it takes, that is the end game, to defeat him. And one thing about Putin is he cannot continue to advance his aspirations to take over much of Europe. He can't do that if we don't let him. So eventually we're going to win. Eventually he will be defeated, and the Ukrainian people will be able to go back to rebuilding their country and being Ukrainians, as opposed to being Ukrainians under Russian domination.
In the Horn of Africa, as you have a huge number of your constituents here in District 4, mainly Ethiopia. There is a lot of drought is going on. Over 20 million people are facing starvation, and there is some political problem, killing, counter killing. What is the solution?
Well, solution is dialogue and working out problems and agreeing to work together in the future for peace and prosperity.
With all the stakeholders come together to talk, right?
Yeah, that's the only way to solve disputes, is there to be not a military solution, but a diplomatic solution. And diplomacy entails dialogue. It's based on dialogue.
Yeah. The US can help to do that too, right?
Yes, the United States is engaged across the world in maintaining security. And there are a lot of hotspots around the world, and quiet diplomacy is taking place all the time in an effort to peaceful conclusions to conflict.
Well, that addressed many of few questions that I have on behalf of our community, specifically African and Immigrant Communities of America, AIC. We're very proud of you for being our voice in the United States Congress. This coming Saturday is a very important day for Muslims here in your district and around the world, known as Eid. Eid is marking the end of Hajj. What message would you like to convey to the Muslims, and also any other message you'd like to convey to all fellow citizens who hear these messages from you?
Well, I would like to congratulate all who were able to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. And for those of you who have been before and did not go again, I hope that this was a great renewal of your faith. And for those who have yet to make the pilgrimage to Mecca, I sincerely hope that you are able to do so as soon as you can. And so all Muslims are observing the end of Hajj, and this is a season for prayer and also for joy. There's a lot to be joyful about. We have our families, we have our friends, we have our country, we have our freedom, and those are things to be joyful about. But we also have challenges across the world that we must be quite serious about. And as we are serious about solving our challenges, let's not forget about the need for prayer. And as we pray, not just for ourselves, but for, excuse me, our entire families, communities, state, nation, and the world. Because if one of us is not free, then none of us are. So let's pray with that kind of attitude, and we look forward to another Ramadan season and another Hajj next year.
Thank you so much, Congressman Johnson. We really appreciated that. Mean a lot to members of our community, and our prayers and our fullest support is with you. May God protect you and protect your family, and may God protect the United States of America, and may God protect our birth country of Ethiopia and any other country in the world. And that will conclude our brief conversation with you. From time to time, we like to engage with you. Sometime we'll be online, sometime when this COVID thing is now almost wind down. We're gonna get together in person and organize programs and town hall discussion with members of the communities to lively engage with your constituent and see their grievances, their concern, so that there will be no middleman in between. So you will have access directly, talking to your people that are supportive of yours. And that means a lot to us. On behalf of AIC, thank you, Congressman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank
The
you.
world Our voices must be heard. Our voices speak the truth. People of the world, let's stop all abuse.
Our voices must be heard. Our voices speak the truth. People of the world, let's stop all abuse. Our voices must be heard. Our voices speak the truth. People of the world, let's stop all abuse.
We all denounce terrorism. We stand against it in deed and word. This is our belief, our unwavering idea.
And we are the Muslims of the world. And we are the Muslims of the world.
الاعتدال طريقنا، نبذ التطرف دائما قولا فعلا واعتقاد، هذا هو الدرب في الشرق والغرب.
The Muslims of the world. And we are the Muslims of the world. Our voices must be heard. Our voices speak the truth. People of the world, let's stop all abuse. Our voices must be heard. Our voices speak the truth. People of the world, let's stop all abuse.
Nous dénonçons le terrorisme. Nous leur renions de toutes nos forces. L'islam, c'est la foi qui préserve tous les droits.
And we are the Muslims of the world. And we are the Muslims of the world.
Wir alle verachten Terrorismus. Wir sind dagegen mit Taten und Worten. Daran halten wir fest. Dies ist unser Weg.